Hello and welcome to Getting in Context. I'm Sean, joined by my lovely wife, Lindsey.
Hey guys, how's it going?
And we're going to be this is off-topic reactions, checking out some of these videos floating around TikTok, Instagram, Reels, Facebook Reels, all those things that you normally see, YouTube Shorts. Many times it's the battle of the sexes type videos, right? It's the pre-sup of men are from Mars, women are from Venus type of mentality. We feel like that's highly destructive and anti-biblical. So from time to time, we like to look at some of these videos, just give you our comments here, what we think. Appreciate you guys for being here with us today. And so we got people joining the live chat right here.
Yeah, these are a lot of things that, little sound bites go viral for a reason because they're little sound bites, but you so rarely get some much needed nuance in a lot of these sound bites. So that's what Sean and I wanted to talk about today. We just want to talk about some nuance.
Yeah, for real. Let's let a few more people pile in. People are still coming in the live chat. And how are you today, my love?
I'm great.
Are you ready to see all this, these wonderful shorts and reels?
Well, considering the fact that I'm the one who saved them, yes. These are just reels that come up in my feed as I'm scrolling, and they're generally marriage, relationship related. So I save them, for when Sean and I don't have a longer video, when I haven't been able to edit a longer video to react to. I've got these little, reels in my back pocket to pull up and just kind of scroll through them. So we're gonna watch a few of these. If we've got some time afterwards, we might take some questions in the chat. So not specific counseling questions, but generalized marriage stuff,
Yeah, we're not offering marriage counseling, guys. So be very mindful about what you share in the live chat during these types of videos. Please do not divulge, details about you or your exes that may dox you or may, dox your children or possibly just may, we understand people can still have hurt feelings over things and still maybe actively in a rough situation, but we do highly encourage professional counseling. We are not offering actual marriage advice for your specific individual marriage issues,
just general stuff.
because we're not qualified. So this is just us talking about these things we see, but please do not ask for actual advice with details in the live chat or in the comment section after the video. All right, so let's check out one of these videos. So I think first we wanted to go over the one where
one of those.
Yeah, this one.
Men are approximately 624% more likely to separate from a woman if the woman gets sick. If a man becomes terminally ill and his wife becomes the caretaker, there is a 2.9% separation rate. If the woman is terminally ill and their male partner becomes the caretaker, they leave at a 21% rate, which basically means that men are approximately 624% more likely to separate from a woman if the woman gets sick. What the fuck is going on there?
That is alarming, shocking. When people have gone through.
I'm sorry, we forgot to make the disclaimer, guys. There will be language. These are videos from the world. There will be language. And so we didn't beep them out. We didn't have time for that. So these are adult videos for mature people. We're reviewing what people in the world are thinking and doing. Sometimes they have foul language.
Yeah, I did try to find as many as possible from my list that have the least possible cuss words. There's a few that I'm just going to need to download and edit if I want to react to them. So, but there might be a few in here that have one or two cuss words.
Through an interview, these men, what they will say is that they're no longer getting the emotional intimacy. They're no longer getting the physical intimacy. They're no longer getting the, you fill in the blank. And as a result of no longer getting this thing, they're out.
So why men, though? They're over 600% more likely to leave a terminally ill partner than women are.
There's a disproportionate amount of the relationship that's placed on the physical side.
Sex.
Okay. I understand, it's horrible that the percentages are even more than anything. There's even one person that would ever do this, male or female. Okay. Yeah. Let's get that out of the way. Okay. So we do not encourage this behavior, no matter what gender you are, no matter what, to any percentage whatsoever. that it's happening. It is bad that men have a higher percentage of doing this. I would like to see the study. I just have a couple thoughts.
Yeah.
I would like to
I
see
would
the
love to
study.
hear your thoughts.
I would like to see the controls of the study, like what specifically they, that where they pulled this number, because what they said it was 21% of men in relationships, specifically marriages, I believe, right? Or
I would assume.
are they just talking relationships in general?
I'm assuming it's
Um,
if not official marriage, then common law at least.
yeah. Again, I'd like to see the study, but let's just go with the 21% of marriages. If that's the case, 79% of these men are not leaving the marriage. 21% are. 98% of women are not leaving the marriage. 2% are
Under this circumstance.
under these circumstances. Okay, so that's where they're getting the 624%
Right.
change.
Yeah.
So it's just a unique way of framing it, I guess what I'm saying, to
Mhm.
get that 600 plus number of percentage, which sounds super alarming, right? But had they had said, well, 21% of men, that doesn't sound as alarming as 600%. Right. So you see how they're using that. It's definitely clickable, right? It's
Yeah.
clickable. In my personal life, I know 2 men that are a part of that 79% that have sick wives. One of them still alive. The other one died
Mhm.
from Lou Gehrig's, and he was with her till death.
Yeah, my papa stayed with my Nana when she got her Alzheimer's diagnosis.
Oh, so it's 3 men actually now. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't put her in a home. I would not have blamed her if he had put her in a home. It's a lot of work to care for a full-grown adult, but also a full-grown adult who has regressed to the mind of a 6-year-old, and doesn't have a memory and things like that. So yeah, so in my life, I have an example of a man who definitely stayed through sickness and health.
So it's clearly that's not good. Now they're attributing it to the physicality of it. That was their conclusion. Again, this is a very small clip. I know you probably didn't see the original video.
No.
You just came across the reel.
Yeah.
And this is why we're not reviewing the probably 2-hour interview with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, this is the guy that interviewed the panel of feminists last time.
And that was a 3-hour.
Yeah, so he does long form content, but in case anyone's in the live chat asking, wait a minute, they clearly cut off mid-sentence in their conversation. This is a minute reel. Is this taken out of context? But guys, this is what's going into the minds of people as they scroll through the reels. So we're reacting to what people are observing. The average person is not going to go watch the 2 to 3 hour long form interview with this guy on this topic to find this 1 minute within that 2 or 3 hours. They're just going to see this 1 minute and move on and think this is the truth. So this is why it's important to react to these reels as they are in the algorithm. So I think that's that's pretty funny. So we need to bleep this out whenever that happens.
Well, here's the thing. I think that there could be some value in just talking about the issue, because based on these studies, there is a bit of an imbalance here. And this does go into the topics of, mass percentages of why women leave versus percentages of why men leave and things like that. And for me, this reel just brought up the conversation, because if it really is more about these men decided that they weren't getting their physical needs met, which is their sexual needs, I thought that was a decent topic to bring up and talk about as a community.
Yeah.
Because I have seen some Torah men online making very bold statements about what gives them a right to divorce their wives. And a lot of them like to say that they have a right to divorce over withholding. And then that gets into a whole conversation of, okay, let's talk about deliberate withholding versus women naturally, biologically having a lower drive than men, and then women having all the issues that come into our lives that can affect an already lower drive: hormones, motherhood, postpartum, depression, past sexual trauma, which is something I had to work through majorly when I first got married, and something that I never hear the guys who are walking around talking about women withholding sex. I never hear them talking about that nuance of, hey, is she, because there are women who do use sex as a weapon. Absolutely. Not denying that. But there are women who aren't using it as a weapon and genuinely have a lower libido than their husband, genuinely have health issues, genuinely have mental and spiritual issues that they really need help working through. to get to a breakthrough in their life where they can try and meet their husband's level of libido. So that's kind of where my mind went when I was watching this, that, you know, of the men who were polled about this, you know, their reasoning on one hand can be understandable, I think, from a lot of men and women's perspectives, but also there's that nuance of, but wait, a marriage is more than just having sexual needs met, you know?
Right. Of course. Yeah. Of course.
So,
Yeah. I do believe that I'm not a doctor, but I think biologically testosterone is related to the sex drive and libido.
yes.
Of course, men biologically
Clearly.
having more of it.
Yeah.
Hence the concept of why we, you know, are wanting to reproduce all the time. And so women don't. So therefore it becomes a balance. It becomes a situation where the men have to learn restraint and discipline, because naturally, on average, the men are going to have a higher sex drive.
Yes.
Even angels had a sex drive. That some of them
Yes.
couldn't stay disciplined.
Yeah.
So this is where I think it is an important topic. Another concept of why the angels are all male,
Yeah.
and why it's I've always lovingly tried to say my understanding of the prodigal son story in Luke 15 is that it's referencing the older brother in that story would be the angels,
Yeah.
the younger brother would be mankind, in that big parabolic analogy of, you know, how the angels are supposed to be disciplined. That's their test.
Yeah.
Is that they were not destined to rule. They were not destined to receive the robe and the signet ring of the Father.
Right.
They were expected to be faithful stewards in the house
Mm-hmm.
and obedient to the Father. And they're not expected to go out into the world and engage in prostitution like the elder son.
Right.
The youngest son wasn't expected to either, but he was also, the youngest son was, mankind was supposed to rule angels at the end of the story via the resurrection. And so as a result of this, it is a bigger test for the angels to be like, all right, they clearly can come and show and attract a woman to them. That's
Yeah.
the history.
Yeah.
Right. During the days of Jared, these rebellious watchers showed up. We see in the testament of Simeon that the women were attracted to the angels,
Yeah.
and even the married women.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, come on, you're talking about a glorified being that can change shapes how he likes to, that make himself present to the woman according to how he, you know,
Yeah.
to any way he wants, according to the nature of their bodies. So that's a disadvantage when you look over at your 70-year-old husband who's got a big belly and arthritis or whatever, and you're like, but out here's this stud angel, you know what I mean, who's also the authority figure, and women are naturally attracted to the authority figures.
Mm-hmm.
So like there was an unfair advantage that was being taken advantage of there, and some of these angels did not restrain from their own sexual desire. And so in a marriage setting between man and woman, it becomes a situation where if the man has way too much, not just say too testosterone, but like too much expectation, that this definitely should be a conversation I think that couples should have before they get married, as far as like, how much sex do you expect every month or every week or every, like, I don't mean it in a derogatory way, but like in general, like say the woman had a expectation to go hiking once a week because that was what she loved to do, right? That gave her a sense of fulfillment in life and enjoyment. She loved it.
I would just say I wouldn't make that a fast and hard rule in terms of setting up unrealistic expectations for a marriage, because
Mhm.
most
That's why you should talk
marriages, most couples start out with a lot of frequency in the beginning.
about it. Yeah, but
And
you
then
should still
sometime-
talk
and
about
then
it.
as you're going, you talk about it. But I would say I don't necessarily think it's a good, especially if people are getting married as virgins. Like that's something they're going to learn and grow into. They may not know how much they want every week, you know. So I don't know that I would say that everybody should be setting that solid expectation right before marriage, because
I said they should at
once
least
you're-
talk about like what's your expectation of this thing.
right.
You know?
And I hear you. And what I'm saying is you got to be realistic in setting those expectations, because marriage is a lifelong thing and life fluctuates and that frequency fluctuates. And, you know, it can be, you can start out with a little in the beginning and end up having more often. You can start out, what's more common is starting out with a high frequency,
Mhm.
and then it dying down. And I think men don't have a proper expectation of that with women. They think when you get in that relationship, that's going to be happening for the rest of your life. And then men start thinking that they have some sort of a right to step out or to leave. Like I said, there are Torah men online who are trying to say that they have a legal right according to Torah to divorce their wives for not giving them enough sex. So I think that there is a mentality in our modern world that is hypersexualized, that is creating unrealistic expectations in both men and women when it comes to marriage and sex, personally.
Yeah, I was going to get there later, but you're right. You're right. Yeah, there's multiple reasons I think could go into this. As far as specifically in like Torah group settings where the concept of polygyny is constantly being thrown around.
Yes.
I've always wondered if this was one of the unspoken reasons for men suggesting polygyny, is that they're like, oh, well, they're not satisfied with the sex life with their first wife, and they're thinking, well, maybe I need additional opportunities. You know what I mean?
The men that I've ever seen talking about wanting that lifestyle, none of them have barren wives. It's not because their wives can't have children. And that's what we see in scripture. We see wives are multiplied by the consent of the first wife, or wives in Jacob's case, to bring on more wives to produce more children. We don't see men of scripture initiating this lifestyle with their wives just because they want more intercourse. And the ones who do seem to be adding wives for very wrong reasons, they go astray. Solomon's a great example.
Yeah, I think we have Abraham and Sarah. She was barren. Mm-hmm. Hagar was offered up. You've got Jacob marrying Leah and Rachel. Mm-hmm. Both wives were barren, and during their barrenness, they offered up their handmaids.
Exactly.
After they became fertile again and started having their own children, they didn't continue to they didn't continue to multiply wives.
They didn't like it.
So after Rachel dies, Jacob is still with Leah, mm-hmm. and he doesn't add another wife.
Right.
Bilhah, unfortunately, was removed from the situation because of what Reuben did. And then Zilpah, I think she dies also.
I thought, didn't she die from grief?
Right. When Joseph was...
when
they thought Joseph was dead.
Killed. Okay.
Also Dinah as well.
Yeah.
I believe that's how it went. So that means he now was, at one point he had 4 wives. Then after Sarah dies, he's down to 1 wife, mm-hmm. and he doesn't continue to add more wives. Yeah. Right. Abraham, Hagar's out of the picture. Sarah dies. He takes on what's her name? Keturah. But that's it. He stops there, right? We also see, what's his name, from Elkanah, Hannah's husband, basically. Yeah. She was a second wife, but she was barren. Yeah. So you don't get that conversation in 1 Samuel, but it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Was she the first wife, and then the husband took on a second wife because she was barren?
Right.
And they were just valuing having children, and then finally God answers her prayers and she has a child. So, but it's interesting because like they're not taking on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 wives just as a practice,
just as a lifestyle.
Right.
I feel like it's because of our culture that men come into the Torah movement and they start reading the Torah, and then they get this idea in their head that, oh, well, that's not a sin. So if it's not a sin, must be righteous to do.
In certain circumstances, it is the recourse for the widow. So it's righteous in that circumstance. But as a general practice, I would lovingly say the righteousness of the Creator was displayed when he gave Adam and Eve, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right. So also you have, the instruction for kings who are rulers over the people, who are to be an example. They're to only have 1 wife, as well as the New Testament.
Priest is not able to multiply wives either.
I don't remember saying it, but what I'm saying is those in leadership, we have an example set both with the kings and in the New Testament. Paul talking about the deacons having to have one wife. Right. So that's another person in leadership over the ecclesia. And so there's just there is some circumstance to it, but it's definitely not a demonstrated precedent by the Creator.
No, and that's the thing. There's nothing in the Torah that says a man is allowed to divorce his wife because she doesn't give him enough intercourse. And so I feel like this has become a discussion in modern times that people in the body of Christ are having. Personally, I believe because we live in such a hypersexualized culture, even Christians are being molded in their minds to believe that mankind is just we are a sexual being. Like they describe our whole being as we are sexual
Feminism. I mean, that's what
beings.
feminism
We are
teaches.
driven by, to me, that's like an evolutionary, we're just driven by the need to reproduce. Look, I'm not saying it's not a huge part of who we are and who God created us to be within the bonds of a marriage, but he clearly still expects us to have self-control surrounding this innate thing that he put into us. And I just, it's sad, if men are more likely to leave, a terminally ill partner because of that, specifically because of lack of sexual intimacy, that's sad. And I would just be encouraging people to, if you're Christians, if you made vows when you got married, I don't think that was something you include in your vows. I don't think that's a stipulation or a caveat that anyone includes that, oh, by the way, if you get sick and we can't have intercourse, then I have a right to get a divorce from you. So,
So there's also the idea that I agree with you, by the way. There's also the idea of, is it possible that many of these men who might fall into this percentage may have an unhealthy, like you already talked about, not just from the culture, but from their also abuse when they're a child, their sexual upbringing, whatever bad upbringing they had sexually, that's caused them to have this, hyper, their internal desire need maybe greater than normal, right?
Yeah.
And they're thinking that they need this for validation, they need this for intimacy, they need this to feel okay and complete in their relationship or in their life, like an actual addiction. Right?
Yeah, I mean, some of them really, it's just that they feel like they need the release. That's how a lot I see it. That's how,
I mean, there is Sex Addicts Anonymous.
Yes,
You know,
and
so it's like
and sex addiction is not something that people within Christianity are immune to. The way that porn has creeped into the culture for so many of us, even us of our age, before we had widespread mass internet like we do today,
right?
Even we were affected by pornography through magazines and videos,
VHS.
Yeah, and the scrambled channel on the television that was like, okay, well, that's not really that scrambled. So, I think that a lot of us bring a lot of that brokenness in our sexuality that we don't even realize is a brokenness, and we bring that into our relationships, we bring that into our marriages, and then we have all kinds of expectations based on our broken sexual nature rather than a healthy, whole, redeemed sexual nature,
I do know.
So
I do know.
But,
so yeah, long story short, men don't do this. If you're in this situation, I don't think this is honorable, and I don't think this is righteous. I don't think that this is what the Father would want. I think He would want you to be with that woman through sickness and health until death do you part.
Yeah.
I think that is important. And it's interesting that those vows that are the traditional vows used here in the United States includes certain concepts within it, and it's interesting how I don't know the history of those. It'd be interesting to look at the history of how those formed over time.
Yeah.
Or if it was just one guy that came up with it one time and everyone else was like, oh, that's really cool, I like that. I want to use that in my marriage.
When I looked them, because I use them for ours, so when I looked them up, I think they come from actually a sect of Christianity, which wouldn't be a surprise. But I do think they're so great and convenient because they're so succinct, and they really cover quite a lot actually in just a few phrases. Richer and poorer is another really important one, because while in this video we may be discussing men having a tendency to struggle with in sickness and health, that part, we know women
struggle with the richer and poor,
for richer or for poorer part.
Yeah.
And there's nuance to that as well. Like I said at the beginning, I know that there are some women out there who might be using sex as a weapon in their relationship, and they might actually be doing the withholding thing. Like I get that. So there's nuance there. And there's
in the same way that women will say to men, they'll have sex with them if they're wealthy.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. There's nuance also in the for richer, for poorer part. So, there are some husbands I watch as an outsider, and I watch them really struggle to hold a job. And this isn't like, it's not like with you for many years you had a lot of bad circumstances happening to like the people who owned those places you were working for.
I already got another job.
Yeah, you already have another job right away. Like you don't have a problem going and just getting that other job. I see some people who, these women are begging for money on the internet constantly because their husband is for some reason not working, and it's usually some weird convoluted, there's not real clear details given. It's kind of like, oh, these bad circumstances. And sometimes, you end up finding out later on, after people give these people a bunch of money, that the husband had some kind of addiction problem, and so there, for richer for poorer, has nuance as well, where it's like, I understand a woman who's struggling being in a marriage with a man who refuses to work,
Right.
and won't be the supporter of the family like he's supposed to. So just like there's nuance with sickness and health here for the men, there's also nuance with richer and poorer. But for the most part, we know that for a lot of unhealed, unsaved women, that poorer part can absolutely be a deal breaker, even if they said it in their vows. So I just know that I don't have to worry about Sean leaving me if I get sick, and I'm not going to leave him if he gets sick, because I said those vows, and that I really meant it.
Yeah, baby, I'm not leaving you if you get sick. So, I mean, you've been sick before.
Yes.
I didn't think about
not
leaving
like
you
terminally or anything, but I've definitely had some ailments.
It could have been
ongoing
it could have been
ailments.
terminal. Like, we didn't know when we were on the doctor, like what was the true cause for a while, and then we figured out, and it could have been terminal. I mean, these thoughts run through my mind. Did she have some sort of terminal illness that's undiagnosed?
Yeah.
So like, but no, I wasn't trying to look for a way out. So you're stuck with me. That's the way it works out.
I'm happy to be stuck here.
All right. So let's take a look at a different one. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Different ideas to look at. Let me see here. Some of these I haven't seen, by the way. So do you see one that you do you recognize some of these?
Yes. Let's try this guy.
Of course.
One of the things I really try to process now as a middle-aged man is the full extent to which I really thought that I was the main character. Well, let's give you an example. Early in our marriage, my partner and I would be going on a trip. My partner, at that point in time, would be doing the laundry, vacuuming the house, making sure the dishes were done. And I would literally think like, well, yeah, but you don't have to do that. Like that's you wanting to do that. It's not what I want to do. She would get everything ready, and eventually I would say, oh, now it's time to get ready. And I would go, and this is not a joke, this literally happened on more than one occasion. I would get like a backpack or a suitcase or something, and I would get my own clothes, and then I would get like 2 or 3 books that I wanted to read, and I would literally bring highlighters because I'm a nerd, and I think, I'm ready to go on the trip. Looking back, like, what? How could I possibly think that was okay? And the thing is, when we had kids, it didn't stop, right? My partner would do all the work to get all of them ready, and make sure they were bathed, snacks packed, and I would get myself ready. I think, oh, I saw my own father do this quite a bit, where he would take care of his own needs. So I know I didn't learn it from nowhere, but I also had to unlearn it because it never was okay. I thought that my role was to do all these things outside of the home, and that the home was, woman's domain. I saw that modeled and even taught as the way it should be, but oh my gosh, is that not partnership? And that sucks. So if you are a person, especially if you're a man, and you think that division of labor is okay, like you shouldn't be married. Like you shouldn't be in a relationship. And I shouldn't have been at that point in time. And that would have made me so very mad. Because I would have like, what more do you want from me? Turns out, quite a lot.
So
there it is.
To be honest with you, the first thing I noticed about this video is that he's calling her his partner and not his wife. I'm like,
yeah.
All right, brother, you still got some things to learn, because that is your wife. Stop succumbing to this agenda to remove the words husband and wife from our collective consciousness. Like, she is your wife, not your partner. I mean, she is your partner in life, but it's one of my pet peeves is when men or women are referring to their actual wife or husband as their partner. Because being a 90s child, partner meant life partner. It meant you're gay, and that's why you called them your partner, because you couldn't call them husband or wife. So
yeah.
Anyways, but I thought he makes a good point that I do think a lot of men out there kind of are aloof to. That this is an aspect in your relationship that can really affect your spouse. It can really affect the quality of your marriage, the quality of your relationship, So any thoughts?
I agree. I think that it can. I think that, again, communication
Yeah.
with your partner, your husband or wife. Communication, you should be able to decide who, where do you need the help? You know what I'm saying? So let's say we're going to go on a trip. You want to get the snacks ready, but you need a ice chest and some ice. You're getting the snacks. I'm usually getting the ice chest and the ice. So it's like, we've kind of agreed upon those shared duties, if you will.
Yeah, I would like to ask this guy, like, did she ask you? Because I do think women have a lot of issues out there with not clearly communicating, hey, I need you to do this for me,
Right.
So we tend to take it all on. And I am guilty of this myself, where I've actually told Sean, it's like I will start to do the dishes, and then I have this little voice inside of me that's like, gosh, it would be so nice if he just stepped in and stopped you and offered to do them. Yeah, of course that would be nice, but that is not how most male brains work. If I want my husband to step in and do the dishes, I really need to just ask him. And so there are so many posts that I scroll to in mom groups online that are complaining about certain things that their husbands aren't doing. And my first question to them always is, have you told him? Have you asked him for help with this?
Right.
Because, if his wife never asked him to help her with those things, then I would say she also has a communication issue. There's a self-motivation issue for him. Once they've got kids, it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah, I was going to speak on that. There seems to be a shift in what he said.
Like once you've got kids, I would hope that most men have a little bit of maturing in them, where there's some self-motivation to get up and and offer to do those things. But also, women do need to communicate. Like,
or even just the common decency of like evaluating the scenario of like, all right, if you're trying to take on a family vacation now, it's not just you and the wife, but you're now going to be putting the kids in the car. Then if your mind isn't thinking, do they have shoes on? Do they have enough diapers? Do we have, if you're not thinking about those things, then that's a bigger issue, I think. And I think that he admitted for him, it was a bigger issue.
Yeah.
It was simply, he's like, oh, I'm packed my bag and my interests and I'm done.
Yeah.
And here's the kid running around with no shirt on and hasn't eaten, and the wife's trying to get everything ready,
packing
and
lunches, dealing with the baby, know, and dad's just thinking, oh, she'll get to it. So I think in this modern world, there's a lot more going on in terms of both parents needing to be involved with children. I think we've got actually a much more child-centric society that we live in today. I think about how children must have been raised in the past, in the past during times of, when the world was just like this place of conquest, when there's like empires conquering empires and men dying in war. And, I'm like, gosh, what did parenting look like back then? Because I feel like we're blessed today to focus so much more of our hearts and our energy and pouring that into our children. I think men and women have a lot less excuse in terms of mutually being involved, in helping with our children.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's almost as if the mindset that is needed here for a man or a wife in this scenario, let's just go with his scenario, which is the man who's kind of being a little bit self-centered in his mind. He's not broadening his mind to think, all right, where can I help out?
Right.
Kind of like last night when we're driving back home and you looked at me and you're like, oh, what's happening tomorrow. And I immediately knew what you were thinking, because actually I had already been thinking it needs to be done.
Yeah.
Right. And you looked at me and you're like, and I'm like, what's on your mind? And you just smiled. And I was like, yes, I know, I'll do it before bed. Right. So even though I didn't verbalize, oh, by the way, this needs to be done either tonight or tomorrow or, soon.
Sometime before.
It was on your mind too. And when I realized it, I was like, all right, this will solve a lot of problems. This won't create any problems if I just do this before bed.
Yeah.
It took me 50 minutes, but I went out and did it real quick. And it was, we both knew it needed to be done. And so the point is, like, I'm actively trying to be aware of what's needed around the house if possible. So it makes me, the mindset, like from a biblical perspective, is we're taught by our Messiah to be servants, right? And in the kingdom of God, that we need to be servants. The Messiah himself says he came to serve, right? As he's washing their feet at the Last Supper, he's telling them, I came to serve.
Yeah.
Right? So no one else got up to wash feet. But he was
That's a good
mindful
point.
of like, we need to wash feet,
Yeah.
right? He's thinking about that. Is that typically a servant's job, even potentially a female servant's job? I don't know. I don't know
I have
the
no idea.
entirety of the ancient Hebraic culture back then in that
Yeah.
regard. But the point is, it's definitely doesn't seem to be the king of all creation
Mhm.
servant's job. Like he's willing to humble himself to think outside of his normal prerogative, which he could have just been sitting at that table and just letting his disciples gush over him, letting them just
Yeah.
say you're amazing,
Yeah.
letting them just soak up the night before he dies,
Mhm.
not trying to think, but he's still, even to the point of dying on the cross, he's thinking about his mother. John, this is your mother,
Yeah.
right? Take care of her, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm stepping out of this realm, so take care of your mother, or she's now your mother. Take care of her in that sense. So like he's still thinking about his mom of like, okay, who's gonna take care of my mom
Right.
once I'm gone, as he's bleeding out,
Yeah.
right? So that's the mindset that we should aspire to.
Right.
So if I would just suggest, like, I feel like if you started with that premise, it will grow into the relationships around you. You'll get better and better at starting anticipating needs,
Yeah.
as opposed to like way after the fact and there's sore feelings involved, to then suddenly, oh, by the way, they're having to tell you all these things that you could have easily anticipated
Right.
by being proactive in your servanthood to your family and friends around you.
Yeah, because there's a dilemma that a lot of wives go through that I think a lot of men are just totally aloof to them being the root of this, not the whole root, but them being a big part of this problem. And that is this accusation of nagging. Because, listen, if I ask you, okay, now Sean really doesn't do this to me. So I'm going to use us as an example, but not because Sean is some example of the guys who do this, but it's something that I've gone through in my mind and something that I've been very cognizant of and talked to him about so that we don't get into these accusations of nagging. Because Sean will say, let me know when the trash needs to go out, because I'm not in the kitchen all the time with it. You know when it needs to go out. Let me know when it needs to go out.
Yeah, because it could be like halfway when I go upstairs in my office, but then you decide to clean out the fridge.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's full and I don't know.
So I started to feel worried about telling him when the trash needed to go out, because a lot of times he'll be in the middle of something when I let him know the trash needs to go out when he has a moment, and he might forget that the trash needs to go out.
Sure.
And then I'll have to tell him again later in the day. Now, there's men out there who will respond to their wives if they're told. I saw a guy on Facebook actually say a woman should only ask once and anything else is nagging, and that's against Torah. Gosh, these men who use Torah to be
You mean
abusive.
abuse the concept of the Torah.
So, guys, if your
Yeah.
wife asks you to help with something, usually she's asking because she needs help in that moment. And we do understand, okay, if you're in the middle of something, all right, can you get to this as soon as you can, you know? So when you're done with that task you're right in the middle of, hop on over here, do this task,
At least
then get over to.
if you're dealing with a reasonable woman.
Well,
Then some people are not reasonable, both male and female. They're still very
I'm
self-centered.
talking in general, this
Yeah.
issue of, this is something that many wives go through. You ask your husband to do something for you. He says, yep, I'll do it. And then he forgets. And then you have to ask him more than once. So there's this accusation that pops up that suddenly your wife is nagging you because you forgot that you said you would do that thing and you didn't do the thing. And so your wife's standing there. She doesn't want to keep filling the trash up because it's just gonna be harder for you to get the trash out if she just keeps stuffing things into it. But if she goes and asks you to take it out again and you act impatient and frustrated with her in response, that creates a tendency in her to not ask you for your help because she thinks he's just going to forget anyways. And then if I have to remind him, he's going to treat me like I'm nagging him so I just want to encourage the men out there. When I mentioned to Sean that something was going to be happening today that would require our lawn to be mowed. I didn't even say anything about mowing the lawn because I didn't want to come across as nagging. And Sean isn't the type of husband who tells me I'm a nag. So when I said to him that little hint, he just accepted the hint. It was like, yeah, you're right. And I'm going to do that tonight.
I wonder.
And it wasn't, I was already thinking about that. You don't need to tell me to do it, like.
I wonder if women continually ask for sex, if that would be nagging.
I don't know.
I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. I think the accusation of the nagging is when the man doesn't really want to do what's being asked.
Yeah.
So therefore it becomes a bother.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's
Yeah.
in like, now there could be other contexts for nagging, but that's one of them.
Nagging can be a true actual
Problem.
Character defect of,
Yeah.
of a lady. Not saying
Of
that it's
overly
not.
critical,
Sure.
unloving in her own rights,
Mhm.
reminding him in a way that's derogatory and demeaning,
Mhm.
as opposed to just lovingly reminding him. So yeah, there's some things like that. So, okay. You want to look at another one?
Yeah. Let's check out another one.
There's a lot here.
Let's,
There was, I think.
that one's about getting fat.
Okay.
If your partner is getting fat, you should tell them they are getting fat. Why? Because if you don't, you're going to end up hating their body. You're not going to want to have sex with them. They're going to feel neglected. It's going to build resentment in the relationship. You're going to blow up and break up when you could have just said, babe, I love you to death. And I know you're going to hate me for saying this. However, when we got together, you were fit and you took care of yourself. And then somewhere along the line, you got comfortable and you stopped. My wife told me I got fat. After a month and a half up north working away from her, I came home huge, 200 pounds at 5'6". She saw me and her actual facial reaction was, oh shit, you've been eating. And it gave me a reality check to start losing fucking weight. Did it hurt? Yeah. But it's okay to tell your partner they're getting a little bit fat.
Okay, that was Fast and Furious. Fat and Furious. So, okay.
This is a hard one because you should never say to a woman that you're fat, like that she's fat.
Have I ever said, oh, hey, you're extra, you look extra big today?
No. And honestly, I'm glad you never brought it up because I eventually brought it up because everybody who's watched our channel since the start can see that I put on a lot of weight after we got married. Now, one thing I will say is that there's a lot of people out there who talk about women will get married and just let themselves go. And they were fit and took care of themselves when they got married and then not anymore. And I can't speak for all women, but I know for me, I was never fit. I was just naturally skinny. Okay. So that's where.
And the body changes over time.
That is where, I got caught up in my 30s and my hormones hit and I got in a good relationship and I started eating real food. For a long time, I was just living off of like frozen dinners.
Guys, she was, when I first met her, she was, okay, look.
What are you going to say? I'm so interested to hear what you're about to say.
She was living off frozen dinners. And not only were they not, she's probably malnourished in a variety of ways. But she was not eating well just think about all the different ways you can eat well. She was not doing it. So she wasn't going to the gym either.
No.
But she was very thin and very skinny. And it was because even though it was like really bad food going into you, there wasn't a lot of it going into you. So then when we got married and slowly and over time, not only did we natural body changes, just like I struggle with natural body changes as well, that it became a diet issue, became very apparent. And then we both started trying to research, and you more than you started getting into more healthy cooking, and then more trying to figure this out. So the only thing that I've ever tried to say to you about your weight is, oh, you look thinner.
Which has been a wonderful motivator for me as I've been losing weight, because eventually I came around. I had never had to work to lose weight in my life. There was one time in my life I was overweight, and it was specifically from a medication. So I got off the medication and the weight just fell off, and I never had to develop any kind of discipline when it came to working out. I seemed to be naturally skinny, and then I also didn't have a vehicle for very many years. So I was doing a lot of walking around, a lot of biking, to get on the bus where I needed to go in Fort Collins. And so I wasn't someone who was fit and healthy when Sean and I got together, and then I just let myself go. I just continued to, kind of eat whenever I felt hungry. And then as life continued to progress, and like I stopped working a day job where I went out and kind of couldn't just sit down and snack whenever, I became a stay-at-home wife, became a housewife. Then I started cooking a lot of stuff from scratch. Then I started cooking a lot of really calorie dense, nutrient dense foods, raw dairy, our freshly milled wheat. So I got to a point where I was frustrated with the weight, and I was doing all kinds of fad stuff. I did the fasting. Fasting is not healthy. Long-term intermittent fasting is not healthy for the female body. And so if you've never heard that before, ladies, I would encourage you to look that up. If you are going to do specific intermittent fast, you really need to tailor it to your cycle, because there are some days in your cycle you should not be fasting. And God designed our bodies to naturally intermittently fast when we go to sleep every night.
Yeah.
So anyways, I did keto, I did intermittent fasting, I did a bunch of different fad diets, and nothing really worked. And Sean, he just never brought it up. He just encouraged me whenever I wanted to try something to lose the weight.
It was just more to love.
See, that's one thing. Sean did not lose physical attraction to me, so I feel very blessed about that. He has been attracted to me no matter what I have looked like so far, so that's been wonderful. But I don't want to abuse that and think, well, I don't need to worry about losing the weight because my husband loves me anyway. Losing the weight is for myself. It's for my health. It's so that I feel better. It's so that I'm setting a good example for Levi. But if Sean had just come up to me and said, "You're fat, I'm not attracted to you, you need to lose weight," that would have really messed with my head. Now, he could have, I would say, he could have suggested we as a couple start going to the gym together. And I did that. We did that in 2020, right before
COVID.
We found this great gym that we were both going to every day. And then COVID happened. And then all the gym shut down. It was like right when we started working out together. But I would say, I do think it's good to encourage your partner where it comes to diet and exercise and health and being overweight and obese. But there's an approach to take.
Now can we talk about, there was a, I don't like to use the word evolution because of all of its baggage, but there was definitely a lack of familiarity when we first got together, and I talked about going to the gym and getting in shape and stuff like that, and you weren't really feeling it at first because you just never needed to. Previously, you just didn't see the value in it. It wasn't interest to you.
It didn't seem like a need.
Yeah, and I remember the first time we went to the gym, like I'm showing you around, I'm telling you about this and that, and then over time you develop more of an interest, started working out on your own, that kind of stuff, which is great. And I just remember thinking, like, she's never had this discipline or this type of lifestyle. Even if you don't want to call it discipline, some people just do it because they feel better afterwards.
Yeah, no,
it's just a part of their lifestyle. And you'd never had that.
No.
And as far as physical need, previously you'd never had that either. So I'm sitting there thinking in my head, okay, so now I'm asking her to develop not only just a new habit during her 30s, but an uncomfortable new habit.
Yeah,
right?
It's not
so
fun per se.
My expectations were very low, right? Because at the time, like I wasn't able to do my normal gym routine like I used to do until I was 36, right? So me being at the gym 6 days a week, that kind of stuff, looking very different and being very muscular and very in shape, being able to run multiple miles and then go work out for 2 hours and all that kind of stuff, because my job situation changed and I was working two jobs. So I wasn't able to work out as much. And also my body was changing as I was getting older as well. And so I wanted to get back in the gym, and I was like, we're in the prime of our life. Let's enjoy it. And how do we enjoy it is by getting back in shape and feeling good, And so it was a struggle for both of us to adopt new habits and try to figure, okay, we need to be more active. We don't live in a society where we walk a whole bunch every day to do anything. We're not out doing gardening all day long, right? And then especially when I started doing more videos with the channel. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm just sitting at the desk all the time. Yeah. Like I'm just sitting there.
Yeah. Because even when you're not doing videos, the other work that you do, the commentaries, or the editing, teachings, all that stuff,
creating the thumbnails,
you're in here sitting.
All the stuff. Like I'm just sitting down at the computer basically. I'm studying for something, like it's just answering emails, that kind of stuff. It's constantly sitting. So that's where it's still an ongoing practice of like continuing to develop a more adjusted pattern. And so because now we're at the stage to where like we just wake up and we're in pain, you know.
Yeah, one wrong move on the pillow, and
Yeah.
you might as well just have a cast for the day. I just would say, I think it seems that men might be like that guy talking about his wife saying, wow, you've been eating. It seems like men can take the blunt nature of that kind of a discussion maybe a little better than women can, emotionally speaking. So for the wives out there, if your husband's not, doesn't get easily offended, maybe have the conversation with him. Husbands, I would definitely encourage you to try to more subtly encourage healthy changes. Even if that just means, hey, sweetie, let's take the dog for a walk. Every day after dinner.
Yeah, it may not include, hey, sweet, I get you this gym membership.
Yeah, exactly. Like it may
Right.
not, but you may want to approach it,
Yeah.
with something that's not just let's go burn calories, like, hey, let's go for a walk after dinner. And it's sun setting, it's nice out. Fido needs a walk, baby needs some sunlight. It's you can do the subtle encouraging, because I'll be honest, I do think it's very hard to talk about women when they've put weight on.
Yeah.
And it's because it's so wrapped up in our self-esteem and our self-worth that it hurts to hear it from an outside source, but sometimes we got to hear it, ladies.
Do not do the Jean-Claude Van Damme training method. Do not strap a stake to her leg and set dogs after her.
That's great advice, baby.
Yes.
Sound advice.
All the older men from the 80s will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it is a situation where men need to be careful with how they approach this, but at the same time, my bigger concern was just about longevity for health. As far as like, we're going to have children, this can become a serious issue. And your quality of life you're going to miss out on the child rearing in a big way, because you can't just sit on the floor and, or play with them or run around or do all the things, right? It's going to become an issue because of the lack of cardiovascular shape. So you've been very diligent and making a lot of progress and being super faithful with it. And I think that's amazing.
Roughly 80 pounds.
Yeah.
Ladies, I hate to break it to you, but 9 times out of 10, it's not PCOS. It's not your thyroid. It's not some medical condition. It really is calories in, calories out. And I did not want to accept that truth for many years. And that's why I'm saying this with empathy. Okay. That's why I did keto instead of just cutting my calories. That's why I did fasting instead of just cutting my calories. It wasn't until I figured out how many calories I really was eating in a day, and I started to figure out how to cut that back, that I finally started losing the weight. Because I was working out for 1.5 years before I got pregnant, and I didn't lose a pound. I continued to gain weight. And Sean will tell you, I worked out an hour to 90 minutes a day.
Yeah. And simultaneously, we also discovered raw milk and the freshly milled grain.
Yes.
And I think that's,
Yeah, I didn't realize, but that's the thing. Those are very calorically dense foods. So I've had to cut back. I still eat my freshly milled grain bread, and I still have some raw milk. Like usually on Sabbath, I'll let myself have a cup of raw milk with one of my little, Fig Newtons or whatever I'm eating. But I really will encourage the ladies out there who've been struggling to lose weight. If you haven't just tried counting your calories and then going 200 to 300 calories lower than what is maintaining your body weight right now, and you will start to lose the weight, just go for a walk every day. Get some exercise in there absolutely matters. But too many people are under the impression that you can counteract what you're eating with working out, when actually it needs to be both. You need to be eating less calories and also working out. And for me, it was the same with you, where me being worried about your diet and weight gain and things like that, it wasn't because I'm starting to feel unattracted to you, because physically you don't look all that much different than when we got married.
Well, I've put on 20 pounds since we got married.
I've been concerned about diabetes, because diabetes was something I didn't understand until I started trying to lose weight and learning about cutting calories and the keto stuff and all that. I didn't realize that diabetes is something you can literally eat yourself into. And you don't necessarily have to be 600 pounds. Like you can be, I've seen, I saw a video the other day, I think I sent it to you, of a guy who was like 6'2", totally normal build, and he was pre-diabetic because he loved soda so much. He drank so much soda. So for me, it's also not just about the looks, it's about long-term health and wanting my husband to have a long life like Abraham, and be, and wanting to, me be the one to die first. So there might be a little selfishness involved that I don't want to live my life without him ever. But yeah, I mean, really,
baby, I'm selling advertisements on my casket. I'm gonna have Coke and Pepsi on my casket. We're gonna pay for my whole funeral with selling advertisements. Mountain Dew, 7-Up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I do think that there was also a part of it that I have had the thought in my head that I don't want to be one of those women that just thinks, he'll love me no matter what, so who cares, because ultimately it's not just about how I look to my husband physically. Like, I want to be here for him for many, many years as well. I want to be here for my child for many, many years.
So kind of blends back into the first video, because
true. Yeah.
Extremely overweight becomes obesity, which becomes health issues, which becomes sickness.
Yeah.
Right. And the sickness to just continually cause yourself to go further into sicknesses leading up to early heart issues and death. I mean, that is a sickness to where if you're allowing food to slowly kill you, and your mind is not healthy to be able to pull yourself out of that,
right? And
then you're just going to eat yourself into an early grave.
Yeah.
You're watching your spouse slowly in a sickness die.
Yeah.
And simultaneously become unattractive in certain ways,
Yeah.
And so it's a rough situation to deal with, and we get it. Some people have mobility issues because of previous injuries or whatnot. A lot of people have mobility issues because they don't move.
Yes.
And so the more you move, the more your body adapts to be stronger, to continue moving. It's just the way we're built. And this is why, I mean, the old joke about walking it off. But you can walk off the weight. You can walk off many mobility issues, joint issues. You can. It just takes time and patience and diligence. You got to keep doing it. I used to be able to do the splits. I used to be able to kick dudes in competition, 6'6", kick them in the head with jump spinning hook kicks. And I can't do that right now. I would have to work my way back to that level of flexibility and mobility. Yesterday I practiced some Taekwondo at a very limited way. A very limited range. I wasn't fighting anybody, but I felt it this morning.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember, and it made me realize I haven't practiced those routines in quite some time.
Yeah.
Those particular exercises, my joints, they haven't moved that fast and with that type of movement in quite some time. So I need to get back at it.
Yeah.
I need to keep.
Yeah. You got to get ready, because you got to start training Levi pretty soon here.
That's right.
So
I just got to keep up with Levi.
So both Sean and I are, definitely on that journey. Me more so, just because I've put on a lot more than he has proportionally, but we both, have habits that we need to develop and get better at keeping. I've been pretty consistent with my exercising, By the way, if you walk for 10 minutes after each meal, just that can help, because that has a direct influence on your blood sugar levels. So sometimes I'll finish a meal and I don't even leave the house. I just literally walk around my upstairs, walk back and forth. I scroll on my phone. I kick a ball with Levi just after a meal, just to get the steps in and get the blood flowing immediately after eating, while my body is still digesting it. A lot of people because we feel a little bit of tired, we have some hormones released when we eat that make us feel kind of tired and relaxed. A lot of people think, let me sit down and let this all digest. But it's actually better for your health, your weight loss, your blood sugar, to get up and walk around for 10 minutes. So that's another easy small, minute change you can make in your life that can help you burn some calories, get some healthier blood sugar. So.
Yeah, I can only imagine at the resurrection, you're just going to see a lot of people just running.
Yeah.
When they're raised up after the day of the Lord, taking the New Jerusalem, They kind of go through orientation and they're like getting their bearings. Oh my goodness, I'm alive
Oh my
again.
gosh, my knees don't crack.
I feel amazing in this new body. It's a
my
real
neck's not sore.
it's a real world. There's grass and trees in front of me. And I'm in this massive expanse of the city of God. And they're just gonna take off running. Just be like, and the angels will just be chuckling, like, oh, it's that post-resurrection run. Everyone does it. Just take off running.
Well, would you like to see if anyone had any questions or interesting comments? It looks like Levi's stirring a little bit, so
Yeah, he's about to wake up.
might want to chat while we can. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, toss them in the chat. Preferably on topic to our off topic topic. So maybe not just strict Bible questions today.
So it is something you don't see. The concept of the modern culture where people have to make time to go exercise, you don't see that in the scriptures. Okay.
No.
And it's because in the ancient world, they had to make time to not work their tails off.
Yeah.
Like they had to make, this is why the Sabbath was a thing.
Mhm.
The Sabbath was important. It was a day to rest. You trusted God was going to help you with the things you put forward in the 6 days previously, the planting, the whatever, the business, the whatever, because people were naturally just thinking, we got to work from sun up to sundown.
Yeah. It was just
Sometimes
normal.
more than that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everything was quote unquote a homestead. Like
Yeah.
very few people lived a luxurious estate lifestyle within a city to where like the average poor person today is like super much greater amenities than some wealthy people in most of the ancient world.
Yeah.
Right. Because they have air conditioning, indoor plumbing,
Mhm.
carpet, laundry machines, like all these things that previously it took an incredible amount of time to provide any type of luxury to your life. And this the very fact that we get to bathe every day if you want to, or
Just,
multiple times a day. Like it's crazy.
The fact that we just turn a little switch to have water and we don't have to go collect our water from somewhere and carry it back. We have definitely created a world that is very conducive to sedentary living. So I have to like motivate myself sometimes to make sure I'm not just sitting around in between tasks, you know? And sometimes Sean has told me before, like he thinks maybe I jump up to do something when he walks in a room so that he thinks I'm not being lazy. And it's okay, sweetie, you don't have to do that. I'm like, no, really, like it's me. It's my own, if I'm not at least doing something with my hands while I'm just sitting here, then I want to be up doing something because I don't want to be sedentary. So yeah, it's definitely the world we live in can make it a lot harder to figure out how to get in that movement that just was normal life for most of humankind's history. So
Again, Lenny, maybe consider my wife, as it taught me, encouraged me, because she read it somewhere. Put a little salt in your water, helps the water hydrate your body better. So that might help. Just a thought, just a very easy basic. It's not medical advice, just a very easy thought. Don't know your medical history. Please don't share it in the live chat. Just saying, a lot of people think they just need to drink more water because they're getting headaches because of dehydration. But possibly depends on what water they're drinking, and if there's not enough salt content in it, they're not getting hydrated because it's not getting into their pores, and that's what the salt supposedly helps do. So just keep that in mind, I suppose.
Okay, that's a question.
Yeah, we've answered this in the past as well. We get it from time to time. Someone's asking, GG2 is asking, what are your thoughts on martial arts? I've seen a breakdown of the spirituality behind it by Little Light Studios. No mention of Taekwondo, which I'm most curious about because my brother practices it. Any type of fighting can be attributed to satanic things or godly things, right? So like it just depends on the culture that it is. So let's just look at the biblical example, okay? In 2 Samuel chapter 23, when it talks about Benai, one of David's mighty men, right? Benai was one of his like fourth or fifth in command to David as far as in the army. He was just an incredible warrior, and it talks about how he overtook these two Egyptian men, took their own spear and killed them with their own spear. He's fought a lion in a snowy pit, which is crazy. If you understand fighting, you want traction to fight. He fought a lion 2 feet versus 4 feet with in a snowy pit, and he jumped down in the pit to go after the lion, right? So this man was an amazing warrior. You do not stumble upon those feats
Yeah.
of martial art. Martial art means war tactics.
Mm-hmm.
You do not stumble upon those feats by accident. He had training.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was Benai being trained in the ways of being able to handle a sword and a spear, taking on two dudes without a weapon, taking their weapon from them, and then killing them with their own weapon? He didn't just stumble onto that by accident. He just wasn't naturally gifted to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You have to learn training. You have to learn body positions, weight distributions and transfers, distancing with weapons. Like, you have to learn things and be taught them. So Benai was considered a righteous man. He was not he's not labeled as an unrighteous man who's practicing Eastern mysticism or false religions. He's a servant of Yahweh, serving King David. Nothing bad spoken about him. He was a highly trained warrior, and I stress the word trained, right? And he's using it for the right reasons. Benai's not starting a rebellion. He didn't join Absalom in Absalom's rebellion. He's not going out and just being a mercenary for hire. He's not using it for unrighteous gain. He's using it to defend the kingdom of God and literally the servant of God, the anointed the King David. So he's using what his training was, which is a martial art, for righteous means, and everyone can do the same. Ancient cultures come along, like the ancient Chinese, like the Koreans, the Japanese, like, you know, even the ancient Romans taught all their soldiers how to fight. You know, this is they literally were lauded for inventing the first double-edged sword because it helped them fight better and kill more efficiently. That's a martial art. Just as the Japanese are famous for their sword play with a katana, you know, the samurai, so were the Romans for their double-edged blade, to which they were extremely efficient killing machines as part of the Roman army. So these are all martial arts, right? You can be used righteously or unrighteously, and you can use them to protect your family, to protect your interests, your community, or you can use them to kill, steal, and destroy. It just depends on, you know, the intent of why you're using a training in order to be familiar with your body and possibly weapons, so that you can defend yourself and stand up against evil. So I think that there's the motivation behind it is all that matters. Ancient cultures attributed, like in, you know, specifically the ancient Eastern cultures, they attributed their systems of fighting with their priesthoods, with Buddhist priests.
Okay.
And so this is where it became, because the priests would sit around at these, you know, at their monasteries, if you will, like the priests would sit around at their temples, and it became a training ground for martial arts, because what else were they doing?
Yeah, that's true.
What else were they doing? Right.
Yeah.
And then, so, I mean, there's a sordid history there. It depends on which ruler, which emperor, what's going on. Some of them trained up samurai, which was to be considered a noble thing. Others trained up ninja, which was considered an assassin, which is not a noble thing, when they use those for political espionage. So it just depends on what's going on, how it's being used. And so just keep that in mind.
Yeah, if your sensei is training you to call in the great serpent to empower you to have these martial powers, then don't do that form of martial art. But generally, I think people really confuse a lot of imagery within martial arts buildings.
The lore from media and stuff like that.
The lore from the cultures of the people who do those martial arts, and they think that the lore in those people's surrounding cultures is like inherently a part of the martial art itself, when most of the time, no, it's not. It has nothing to do with any kind of spiritual thing. It's physical mastery of the body. So
yeah, when I was younger, I was like 17, I think, 18. I took Kung Fu for a short while, and maybe like 5-6 months. And Kung Fu is famously known for mimicking animal styles. And so we would do the tiger, we do the monkey, we do the crane, different types of Kung Fu styles. And I always felt uncomfortable with it, not just because it was awkward body positioning. And I had already taken karate earlier in my life, and which is very practical body positioning.
yeah,
As far as more of a stand-up style fighting, which is more balanced. But now I'm doing these very broad, strange movements to mimic these other animalistic fighting styles. And I just felt like it was not as effective. Now, the Kung Fu teachers that were there, they didn't encourage me to meditate to Buddha.
right.
They didn't encourage me to meditate to any other gods. I can't remember
Yeah.
the other Chinese gods of Xing Xiong, or I can't remember their names,
Prawn.
What? Tron? What? What?
Who knows?
No Tron. But I can't they never encouraged any of that stuff. It was
Yeah.
just fighting styles, you know.
Mhm.
It was, most of it was like train your forearms to be like iron, which I thought was a good practice, because if you're blocking kicks,
Yeah.
especially,
Yeah.
and that did help me, because when I started taking Taekwondo soon after that, because I'd taken karate before, take a little bit of kung fu and boxing, I was going to a boxing gym and additionally going to a kung fu studio.
Okay.
So I was learning standing up fighting, in addition to this kung fu with these deep, wide stances
Mhm.
and these exaggerated movements. But the kung fu place encouraged, we would take these metal bars and they would want you to like just bounce them on your forearms and balance them as you bounce them. So it was as your forearms are being struck constantly to build the strength in your arms, so that when you blocked a kick or punch, this like they kicked
Yeah.
or punched iron
Yeah.
from your forearms, like you'd be strong. I thought that was really important. And so when I first started doing Taekwondo, I never wanted to, like I would do the competition fighting, where they would encourage you to put these pads on your forearms and on your shins, so when you get kicked or you block, it doesn't hurt you or your opponent. And I never wanted to use my forearms, because my forearms were like rocks, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, I can block it no problem, you know what I mean? And,
yeah, but his foot may not do too well on that iron forearm, right?
right. Yeah. I broke many of my toes on people's elbows
Yeah.
and arms and wrists and things like that. So anyway, so the point is, none of the schools, whether it's a dojang or dojo, none of the studios that I'd learned any martial arts, none of them ever encouraged me to worship a false god.
Mhm.
They never encouraged me to use it for the honor, veneration, or magnification of a false god, or a false philosophy attributed to a false god.
Yeah.
Right? It was simply just, hey, if you're in a street situation or if you have to protect your family, here's what you can do. Here's the different techniques.
I think that this is something that is performed by men across cultures, because this is part of mankind. This is part of, there's always been warfare. There's always been a need to defend yourself from someone else. And I think that men in every culture of every time have had some class of men who are their warrior class. And so they are going to be learning from the other warriors. I think this is just a natural part of life. So that's why we see it in every culture. That's why a lot of different cultures, you're going to see imagery from their cultures in their dojos, in their studios. So
it seems as if Gigi is not picking up what I'm putting down in this regard. He continues to
just for
bring
the
forward.
record,
Sorry. Go ahead.
well, just so you know, we watched that documentary.
Right.
So we have seen that documentary.
I'm just trying not
We don't
to, like,
agree.
I'm trying not to specifically, go after Little Lighthouse. Like, they got their own opinions on things. That's
their
fine.
opinion.
That's fine. But I do not agree with assuming that there is a philosophy or an encouragement to worship a false god just because you learn a way to protect yourself.
Yeah. And,
That's a huge conflation.
and if I'm recalling correctly, in that documentary, there was a very specific guy who had a very specific testimony about how he got sucked into some spiritual things through his journey in martial arts. So his story doesn't apply to everyone. Sean is here teaching the gospel of the kingdom, teaching against the ways of the enemy. And he did martial arts nearly his whole life. So just keep in mind that documentary isn't necessarily an unbiased documentary. That was a guy sharing his testimony, and praise.
Sorry, guys. Just give me just 1 second here. There's no rhyme or reason to why
I
it does
know.
that. I don't understand that. Let me make sure the audio is okay.
All right. Yeah, guys, let us know. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason why it does that. It just does it weirdly. One, yes, if you go to some sort of martial arts school and they encourage this, well, that's clearly don't go back.
Yeah.
Leave that place. Don't go back. That they clearly have more of an agenda than just teaching you to be able to defend yourself. Okay, but depends on which city you live in, where you're at. Look, I grew up in the Midwest, and I took, martial arts back east in West Virginia. Never once did any of those places ever encourage me to worship a false god or to respect and bow down to a false god. So keep that in mind. If you do run to those places, just leave. There's plenty of other good places out there. Many Christian-owned karate and taekwondo studios all across the United States.
Yeah, I've tried to encourage Sean to start doing, teaching kids taekwondo here in our small town, because there is no taekwondo here. But it's like a whole
now I need to be a fourth
federation, and like he can't just start his own dojo.
I could, but it wouldn't be respected as easily. I don't think it would be successful because a lot of people like myself, fathers who have the internet and they can look up, is this a legitimate school?
Yeah.
And then you have all these other schools that pop up saying, "Oh, I was trained by this guy and this," and then and
yeah.
I don't look. I'm not.
He also just doesn't have the time. Really, there's just no time.
I'm not called. I'm not called to do that, sweetie. I'm not called to do that.
I saw a question up higher after we got that question about the martial arts, so I wanted to keep going. There.
Okay, the encouraging community is asking, is there any law in scripture about age gaps in marriage? Legal age gaps, of course. We just have the only thing in scripture that I know of that speaks about any kind of age is the age of accountability, which we believe is the age of accountability, when it says that it's the 20 years old for a child to be able to be a part of the military in Israel, as far as also being a part of the census in Israel. And that seems to be a unique thing.
Yeah.
20 years old. So this is where, I know legally in a lot of countries, 18 years old is considered to be an adult in some regard. We see in the Testament of Levi, we see that he received, seems to be as he received, or he was at least ordained into the priesthood at 19 years old, which is an interesting thing. Maybe he had a year of training or something. I don't know. But the point is, beyond that, I don't see a lot in scripture that says anything about dating age gaps. I'm assuming because of if a man is considered to be able to be a part of the census and the military at 20 years old, that possibly the woman would also need to be 20 years old before she could be married or released by her father to be married. I don't know. We don't see any record of history of like, oh, the ancient Jews practiced 16 or 17 or 18. We don't see anything like that.
I would say that this is another instance where scripture is silent. And so we need to err on the side of God being logical, merciful, understanding of the development of his children that he's created. And so I think this is an area of silence in the Bible that gets abused by people. First of all, you've got people who don't believe in the Bible, who think they know the Bible, who love to go around talking about Mary being 12 years old. And I'm like, where are they getting this from? Are they getting this from somewhere? Has someone in the church said that at some point? I wouldn't be surprised, because there's nothing anywhere that says her age. You also have, in my opinion, very sick men who believe that marriageable age for a woman is just based on her menstrual cycle. That's not good enough, because we know clearly the state of the world in terms of our air and our food and our water and the hormones in everything. Girls are having earlier and earlier and earlier menstrual cycles. So I don't know, a menstrual cycle might have started much later back in those days than they do now, because our health, our reproductive health is directly affected by the fallen world that we're living in and the fallen diet that we subsist on. So that's number one. I think that there's some abuse of that in terms of a lot of men over the centuries who've acted like, well, if she's got her period, she's mature, she's ready for marriage. I would also say, though, that I think men and women probably matured a bit faster in the older world, where you were expected to be helping with things in your family and running your household. And, people didn't just have families and then send their kids to school back
Right.
then.
Now we have,
kids were part of that unit.
in the United States, we have cultural arrested development because of the
Yes.
school system, because of the expectations for children to just be children up until they're like 18 or whatever. And you're like, this is where, even when I was younger in the 80s and 90s, parents were still trying to get their kids at 14 or 15. You're still trying to encourage them to start thinking about a job.
Yes.
Start thinking about earning your own money. Start learning how to do your own laundry, that kind of stuff. Start learning how to cook a few things.
Nowadays, that is not the case for many, I would say a lot of 16-year-old girls out there, not mature, not mentally, emotionally, not spiritually mature, not ready for marriage. Also, we're not raising children for marriage anymore.
No, we're not.
So back then, little boys and girls, girls knew that a lot of women, their goal in life was to grow up to get married and become mothers, become wives and mothers. So that was an expectation. So women were prepared for that role from childhood. Now we're not. A lot of girls are being told, oh, don't grow up and get married and tie yourself to a man and make your own money so you're never stuck. And there's this whole different kind of rearing that's happening in our society.
Yeah, satanic
that's
deception.
Creating very immature teenagers. So I would say, me personally, I look back on history and I don't necessarily judge history through the modern lens like a lot of people are doing these days, because I think, a 15, 16, 17-year-old girl in the year 1500 was probably a bit more mature mentally and emotionally and physically, just in life, with life experience in being part of this family unit and not just being sent away to be babysat at school all day. I think those girls may have been more prepared for marriage at a younger age than girls can be today. So, at the same time, I also think that there's some real toxic messaging out there that tells people never get married young because nobody's ready for it. When there are plenty of people who may be ready for marriage by the time they're 19, 20, 21, and that may be the best option for them, instead of sending them off to the wolves for their 20s to just go party for that decade of their life and then figure out marriage later. So, I would say we don't have any clear delineation in scripture, but this is where we use logic, and we look at the world we've got going on today and we see what our maturity levels at in our teenagers today. And I would say most teenagers are not at a maturity level that they were even 200 years ago.
So
Lindsey out.
So bringing it back to the idea of age gap, we don't have a definitive thing from scripture, but I would strongly suggest not too big of an age gap, because you're going to have a huge difference in life experience. You're going to have a difference in maturity levels. Mm-hmm. You're going to have more than likely a harder time overcoming those communication issues. I would just, I know there's some people. I remember when I was 20, my roommate's sister, she was 20 and she was dating a 40-year-old and the parents were livid. Like they were wanting to beat the dude up.
Oh, wow.
And because like he even showed up, like we all had dinner one time, like their moms and dads and families, we all showed up, a bunch of us to have dinner. And then this guy showed up, her boyfriend showed up, and it was just nothing but hate stares. Like the whole meal. It was very awkward. So that could be pushing it in our culture. Mm-hmm. It just depends on the culture. It depends on, the maturity levels. There's a lot going involved there, but I would say wait till she's at least 20.
Just for the record, Sean and I have a 7-year age gap. Sean is 7 years older than me, but we did meet in my 30s. I was 32 when we met, 31 when we met. I was in my 30s. So, I had, and God got to me, obviously. So God really matured me a lot in those couple of years of preparation before he brought Sean into my life. So I do think that spiritual aspect can really come into this, so it's not just an arbitrary number on a piece of paper. Like you can have a younger woman who is more mature because she's been walking with the Lord, you can have an older man who's not very mature. So I don't think I ever dated anyone more than like a year older than me until Sean.
Okay.
So I don't know. There was some for me. I liked the fact that you were older than me. You had some more experience. Really liked. To me, guys, what mattered most was actually his age in the Lord. Like the fact that he was walking with the Father for 20 some years by the time we met.
Stumbling with the Father.
That was so
On
much.
crutches.
That meant so much to me because his spiritual maturity. I mean, you guys have all seen it on display. So that was very attractive to me. It was something that made me feel very comfortable and safe, regardless of any age gap. But I feel like also our age gap isn't big enough that it makes me scared about like, oh my gosh, he's going to be geriatric way before I am. You know, like a 20-year age gap like your friend back then, you know, that would make me worried in the long term, just in terms of lifespan.
Right. Yeah, 70 and 50 when you get older, and it's
Yeah.
like, it's different. Hey, would you hand me one of my Tree of Life bags? So someone in the chat is asking about the tea that I drink. This is not a guaranteed for curing up your gout, but it's definitely helps. This is you can get these. This is my own blend actually. Get them in the video description below, braveteas.com. And the link is in the video description below. This is the Tree of Life blend that I use. It has holy basil, amongst other things, the elderberry leaf, the damiana, and the nettle leaf, and that gives it the blend for flavor. But the holy basil is the primary. There's other things that you can do to reduce your blood sugar levels beyond holy basil, beyond this particular blend. You could start here and see if it has an effect. Obviously, I'm also anticipating that anyone struggling with gout is going to be reducing their sugar intake and possibly their red meat intake. I'm still on the fence about whether the red meat intake is truly it or not. I would say it could just be your sugar intake and your wine and beer intake, but you do have all these stories in the past about ancient kings suffering severe gouts, even popes suffering severe gout because they had these extremely rich diets of meats because they were the kings. You know what I mean? So it's something to consider. Hopefully, you're adjusting your diet also. But as far as the holy basil is really good to help reduce your blood sugar levels if they're too high, as well as turmeric, as well as something called bearberry, bearberry, bearberry. So that's a good place to start for yourself if you're struggling with that.
Okay. Gordon Thompson is asking pretty much the opposite issue than what was previously discussed. What happens when intimacy is much less because of extreme fertility? We are very blessed, but are nervous about intimacy.
Okay. This is definitely an odd, unexpected question. I would want to ask, are they tracking their cycle?
He says down here that they've tried. So here, we'll get the other one here. 5 children in 8 years. We have tried the fertility timing thing. Didn't work, clearly. Haha. We love our children, but financially things can get a bit sticky if we were to continue to multiply. So, you know, I
mean, we're just taking your word for it, Gordon. It seems like you have a blessed family and a blessed situation to be in that situation. I understand the financial restraints, but I mean, it's hard for me to think that every single day of the month, like you're fertile.
I always wonder about this because Sean and I use NFP, and I know not all bodies are not the same for sure, and not all women have the same symptoms with ovulation. I'm pretty blessed that I absolutely know when I'm ovulating. I can feel it. I do the test strips, and the test strips work for me. A lot of people who do the fertility stuff will say don't rely just on the test strips, but they've always worked for me in conjunction with actually feeling what my body is doing. So Sean and I don't have a problem with either using protection or refraining during that window, which is only like a 6-day window. So you have that rest of the month. Now, I know that some women out there have very irregular cycles. Some women, you know, the LH tests don't tell them anything and they have to rely on body temperature, and that's not the most accurate. So all I can say is I'm not quite understanding what exactly your question is, because if you're asking, well, like, what if there's a lack of intimacy because of that? Well, what? You know, I mean, do you what? You can't, neither of you can look at each other and say, you're withholding. You're not being intimate with me. I mean, because you guys you're being deliberate. You're trying not to have more babies because you don't feel ready for more babies. And Sean and I we don't teach a dogma of, that's the whole purpose of sex, and just let God decide. And we don't practice the open womb thing. And maybe that's a faith issue for us. I don't know. God will work on us if we're wrong about that. But
we're definitely not Catholic.
I would say, look, that's something you guys just have to come to terms with as a couple and accept that that's the season you're in right now. You can't just do it whenever you want because you're trying to be careful and not continue to grow your family when you don't feel you're fit to, financially fit to grow your family yet. So I would say that's just something you guys work on, having other forms of intimacy that don't involve the danger of pregnancy. Set aside time to snuggle. Snuggling and that kind of just simple touch and spending that time together closely holding each other is so underrated in our hypersexualized society that thinks you must have a sexual release to be intimate together. You must have that release or you're not being intimate. No, you can find other ways to be close and be intimate without risking pregnancy.
But in all fairness, a good snuggle section leads to sex.
Yeah, you got to be careful about the snuggling. Where and when you're snuggling, you got to be strategic about to set yourselves up for success. But yeah, I know that the NFP can be hard for some women because they don't. I feel so blessed that pregnancy seemed to have totally reset my cycle, where now I seem to have a very normal, regular cycle, and I can know when it's safe and when it's not.
And this is something to consider also. If your wife is ovulating irregularly, then there are these little test strip kits you can buy to track it. And so that's why I was saying earlier about it's not, please don't give us all your dirty details, but we're just taking your general word for it that you guys are, practicing this
correctly.
Yeah, correctly.
Because there is a wrong way to do it.
So that's the only thing is maybe just continue to track ovulation, and that might help you.
Gordon, open womb is a practice of people who believe that it is basically a sin to prevent pregnancy in any way. So you don't track your cycle and you don't refrain from intercourse during your cycle at any point. You just have intercourse when you feel like you want to have it. And if you're going to get pregnant, that was God's choice. So a lot of the people who have the very big families, people who have 7, 8, 9, 10 kids, a lot of them believe in open womb, which means no birth control of any fashion, no even natural birth control, of just abstinence during the fertile time of the month. So,
I know this is going to sound like, I hope this comes across the right way, but I would also want to encourage families that if not every family is able to have multiple children, if you find yourself in that situation, I would also just maybe say, okay, Father, if you're going to continue to give us these children, then I'm trusting you're going to give us a way to provide for these children. Mm-hmm. If we do believe that these children are formed in the womb, uniquely and wonderfully made in the womb, as Scripture talks about, and that they're a gift from the Father, then, and we're being responsible with the procreation process.
Yeah.
Then the Father's going to give us a way to take care of these children and bless us. Before I ever had my first son, my first marriage, the guy that I was working with in the financial business, when he heard that my first wife was pregnant, he said to me, he goes, "Oh, wow, you just got a raise." And I was like, What are you talking about? And he goes, "Hey, God's going to give you more money because you got a child now. So get ready to do more business." And it never even occurred to me, Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, wow, God does take care of us,
Yes.
And He knows the needs, right? He provides for the sparrow.
Yeah.
He provides for all of everything and all of creation. So, like, why wouldn't He provide for me?
Right.
If I have, a child? This is what the world fears. the world will teach people, oh, you can't afford children,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
to the justification of trying to abort them.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying you're doing that, brother. I'm just saying in general, this is where that type of extreme mindset leads to the argumentation from some of the world is they're like, well, we can't afford to have children, so we can't get pregnant. We shouldn't have children, or we can't afford to have more than 2 children, or that kind of stuff. And it just, I mean, I don't know, something to consider. I would try the ovulation. I would also just see if God looked. I would have a frank conversation with the Father. If you want us to have more children, I need to make twice the income. Father, I believe you're the God of creation. You can give me twice the income. And I think, brother, if you're here listening to us and you're following us, then I want you to have a bunch of children. I don't want these nihilistic liberals who are feigning atheism to repopulate.
Yeah.
I want people like us
That's
to repopulate. And in 20 years, we won't have a liberalism problem in 20 years. We won't have a feminism or an atheism problem in 20 years. They're all going to be dead, and they won't have any children.
That is the it's a simultaneously sick and satisfying irony about it all, is you see them out there talking about how, they don't like children and the child-free life is the way to go. And you think, okay, well, that ideology will end with you. And then,
Yes.
fine, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
So-
you
so are
go
people.
ahead and be child-free, you atheist, liberal, abortion lover, go ahead, because that's one less person in the world that's going to be raised to think like you, you know?
Yeah, I'm completely okay with people that are trying to walk with the Father, that understand common sense, taking care of themselves, including, 2A minded people. Make as many babies as you want, guys, and teach them the values that you have.
And also, I do want to speak to the women out there who need to hear this, that if you don't feel called to have more babies, that's okay too. Okay. I am a child of a woman who probably shouldn't have had 4 children because it was too much and she hated it. And I grew up knowing she hated it. I was a 9-year-old thinking to myself, why did you have us if you didn't want to raise us? And that is a horrible thing for a child to grow up thinking and feeling and being aware of. So, for the sake of children everywhere, if you don't feel you're ready to have more, even mentally, physically, emotionally, it's not even just financially, that's okay. Recognize that within yourself, okay? Because if you feel just obligated, you're just bringing children in this world out of obligation, you're going to cause so much lifelong damage to your children, because they're going to know that you didn't actually want to have that many, and it's miserable, and you feel like you're in prison and you just can't wait to not be a mom anymore. And those things will seep out of you even while you're trying to keep them contained. So I also want the women out there who need to hear this to know it's okay to not have any more. If you don't feel like you're called to have more, if you don't feel ready for it, I don't feel ready for another one right now. And to be honest with you, my desire for another one does come from a place of obligation, because I feel like I want to give Levi a sibling. So I'm not even in a place mentally and emotionally right now where I'm like, oh, I want to hear more newborn cries and I want more pitter patter of feet through my, it's because I want
pitter patter.
I think
try a stomping,
Tasmanian devil.
Screaming Tasmanian devil.
No
so pitter patter over here.
If you need to hear of a woman that other women look up to, say it outright. I'm not ready for another child emotionally or mentally. And the thought of it right now only is from a place of obligation, because I feel like I want Levi to have a sibling, not necessarily because I've got all these motherly nurturing desires right now, So that's okay too, ladies. If you don't want a big family, if you are overwhelmed by more than 1 or 2, that's okay. You're not a bad Christian for it. You're not a bad wife. You're not a bad mother. You're not an inadequate woman. Okay. You're just honest with your own limits and what you can and can't handle. And that is something to be applauded, rather than creating a life for children that are going to feel like they were a burden and they just should have never been born. Okay. Because that is something that I felt through my whole life. Okay. And I'm not saying my mom shouldn't have had me. I'm glad I'm here. All right. But it was something that I was hyper aware of. Honestly, it created in me a huge hesitancy to have children myself, because I was worried I would be like my mom. I was afraid that I would, that's one of my biggest fears, is Levi ever feeling like I don't want him, or he's a burden, or, I don't love being with him. Like I don't ever want to instill that in him, because I know what it did to me. So if you're out there and you really need to hear that, I hope that it sinks in. I hope the words can comfort you, and that you can understand that just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you are absolutely required to be a baby machine when you're not ready for more babies.
Okay. What do you think, sweetie? We'll call this a day?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end it on.
All right. Okay. Thank you for being here, everybody. We'll try to do this again next week if possible.
Yeah.
And hope you guys, many of you guys are already celebrating the Sabbath. Hope you enjoy the Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Ours hasn't started just yet, but if you're not, look into it. It's a day of rest. Yeah. It's a sign that you're in covenant with God. It's one of the commandments, and it's a way that we disciple to God, is we actually just take a day off of work. Yeah, we take a day off and rest.
It's pretty great.
So
we need to make sure we say this: like, comment, share, and subscribe. Get some engagement in those comments for us. Get the video up into the algo for us.
If you like what we're doing,
some more folks,
consider helping and support us through Patreon. Yeah. Links in the video description below. You get access to a whole bunch of extra content as well.
Yes, that's true. And also, I've started a Substack. I guess I'm a writer. I've been a writer for a very long time. I was a writer in high school. I went through some really severe writer's block through my 20s. And
anyone that uses the term writer's block, it goes through writer's block, is a writer.
It was really, I felt like my creativity I started to express that creativity in other ways. I got really good at photography, actually, in the meantime. And then, of course, I learned how to make jewelry. But I feel like I'm back to my first love. I've been doing a lot of some long form writing, some articles. There's a lot of ideas that strike me through the day, random thoughts that I have that somehow just turn into multiple paragraphs of stream of consciousness, and people seem to enjoy reading it and be edified by it. So I did start a Substack for people who don't want to be on Facebook. This is an alternative social media that does a lot less censoring, a lot less spamming. If you subscribe to my Substack, you actually get an email directly sent to you anytime I post an article. So you don't have to worry about hoping you'll see me in the feed. You just get directly sent to your email my writings when I post them. So it's also a cool place. I want to recommend it for other writers, because it's also a place where people can actually support your work financially. They can pledge support to you throughout the year. So that's another cool way. Maybe if you're out there, ladies, stay-at-home mom, maybe you're looking for some kind of little bit of side income, and you happen to be, God has gifted you with a talent for writing. Check out Substack, because it's actually full of Christian content creators. It's a real friendly place for people like us. So if you're not on Facebook, that's where I've been posting my writings for years. I am gradually uploading writings from my Facebook onto my Substack, so people can access them there as well. So you can go subscribe to me.
It's in the video description below if you want to do that.
And we'll probably see you guys tomorrow. We might live stream. We might take a Sabbath to actually rest for the day. Sometimes we like to.
Did we take off last week?
We didn't.
Oh, we did live stream. I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
It's been a long week.
I'm going to be having my prayer session with my dad. Me and my dad are going through some real cool stuff right now, and God is calling us to get together and pray over some things from our past. So I might need a, I might not want to stream after that. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I might be emotional and stuff. It's going to be good. I'm really looking forward to it, but I might be feeling, like, ooh, I just need to chill with my hubby on the couch after that. I don't know. We'll see.
And I got a new shotgun, so I might.
Oh yeah,
I
might want to go play.
We'll see what happens. Love you guys. Appreciate you. Have a
Love
good day.
you guys.